Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bonsai Escape. I'm Mike, and today is all about the Ficus Benjamina bonsai. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, it's Mike from the Bonsai Escape. Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at and working on a Ficus Benjamina bonsai. This tree I've started working on about 3 years ago. It started from a small cutting from a 20-year-old tree that I had, and I rooted a couple cuttings, and I really loved how these trees grew. They're very fast growers, and the interesting characteristics of how the roots of the trunk of my old tree fused together. So I took that concept and I planted 2 of the saplings next to each other and cut into the cambrium and fused those trunks just to see if what happened. They were tiny little sticks. I'm going to share a picture of what it looked like when I first planted it. And it just took off. And so for the last couple of years, I've really been just growing it excessively, fertilizing, and trying to just thicken this thing up. Ideally, probably would be better if I just let it grow wild, but I like to keep the shape. It's a pretty tree, but it's grown pretty excessively in 3 years. I recently repotted this about a month ago, and I covered the base of this with sphagnum moss to help protect the roots and keep them moist. And I started getting a lot of yellowing in my leaves. I leave this in the sun from basically 8 a.m. until almost sunset, 6-7 p.m. As long as the roots stay healthy. Well, what was happening was I was getting chlorosis. I was getting a yellowing of the leaves, especially the new growth was really yellow, and it really didn't look this healthy. This is very healthy. So I took the sphagnum moss off, and I realized it was probably just getting a little bit too wet. And within 2 days of doing that, the air that was allowed through, sphagnum moss is to allow airflow, but I was just having a trouble with it for some reason. It didn't take too well to that. So I took the sphagnum moss off, and within 3 days time, all that yellow went away. The roots are healthy. They're sending all that nutrients and nitrogen to the foliage to make them nice and green. And so now I'm just going to do a structural pruning on this, get it back into its shape that I wanted, and I'll share that with you in a bit. I wanted to explain a little bit about how I'm going about pruning this tree. My goal was to have all these lateral branches coming out and a lot of the canopy kind of draping over, coming out laterally. The top has a little more apex with shoots going up straight, but I'm going through branch by branch, looking at anything that's growing upward and downward and trying to establish some movement in the branches and some taper. A ficus will get long and thick and strong in one branch without any movement. It just kind of looks poor. So I'm trying to create some taper when I am cutting these branches back, hard pruning them back. I'm trying to encourage some back budding, which I found the ficus do. If you thin it out excessively like I am, this isn't that excessive, but thinning it out pretty well, getting some some interior light to the dormant buds will cause them to shoot back out, especially at the tips where I'm cutting. But here's a branch, it's going downward. I don't want that, so we'll get rid of this guy. That's a good size growth, and that was from a new shoot that was growing after I cut the top excessively to thin it out in the late winter, because this does sit inside all winter under grow lights, and it grows really well. Stays warm, and that's the key to this, keeping it warm, moist. I do have to spray it inside the house because it gets very dry, but other than that, it thrives inside all winter. You can see the difference. It might be getting a little too dark here, but the old growth and new growth here, I'm just going to trim back that new growth to one of the cuts. It's getting a little dark, so I may have to finish this tomorrow, and I'll give you some updates as to where I'm at. But I just want to share with you what I'm doing to trim this tree and give it that profile, kind of a nice dome canopy. This side of the tree, the second branch that was growing up, has a branch in the front here that only has a few leaves on it. And so what I'm trying to do is cut back, trying to encourage some growth of the branching deeper into this branch here. I may have to graft a cutting on it. Any of these cuttings I could probably graft onto here. That was going to be my goal, to do that, and I might do that with some of these cuttings. I'll put them in some water tonight, and I might actually graft a couple branches onto this trunk, this branch here, because I'm not really getting that back budding I wanted to, and I may have to just cut this off and let it do its job. But until then, I'm going to keep trimming, and then I'll give you a little update when it gets lighter tomorrow. Okay, we're back here. We got some sunlight today, and I finished trimming up the tree as much as I want to do. I've done some pretty significant hardwood cuts. One of the interesting things about ficus when they do grow is they get very dominant on the top, and you start getting a lot of multiple branches coming out of one section, which causes swelling in that area. So I've had to keep continuously reducing that. I'm trying to reduce the canopy back to encourage more ramification and taper and movement in the branches. We're pretty good now. This is going to start filling out. I do get some back budding where the cuts were, and the goal today, I've opened up the canopy. A lot of light's going to get in now. Thinned out the top area the most, because that's where we get a lot of small growth occurring after the fresh cuttings. And the next step today is going to be grafting some of these cuttings onto this branch. It's just a nice branch. It just doesn't, it never really, I think I cut too much off. They were just bad branches that were growing out of it initially, hoping I'd get some back budding, but it started getting long and I wasn't getting anything in the back. So I need to do some grafting here, and that's what I'm going to work on right now. Okay, so I kept a good handful of cuttings from last night's trimming, and I'm just going to kind of go through here and see which ones I think will be viable. That's probably a good cutting right there. It has some hardwood to it. It's not just fresh growth. There is hardwood into this cutting. So I'm probably going to work on grafting this one on one of the sides of the branch. That looks like a pretty good one. These probably might be too thin. If anything, I can get cuttings from them. I'm going to leave this one out. I left some in here just to make cuttings with. And that's probably a good one right there. It has really good thick hardwood at the end. And if I can graft it maybe to the side here, we got a lower side branch coming off the bottom. And I'm going to definitely keep that one in consideration. That's a cutting. This is a big thick one that I might just use as a cutting. I think that's going to be, although I might be able to get that grafted on. I don't know. I've got a bunch of them here that were promising. Yeah, these are a little bit better. They've got some good hardwood cuttings, and it might give me a little bit more branching. So I think that's a good consideration. And I think I was going to work on this one too. Let's see what else we got in the mix. Yeah, I think for the most part, these guys were good ones that I'd looked at. That's going to be a cutting. This could be a branch. Let's leave this one out. Cutting. Not that I need more ficus, but they grow so fast, they're easy to propagate. So let's put that aside. Let's consider what we have. If I'm going to go with if I'm going to do this, I definitely want to get the best viable branches that have some vigor to them. This one definitely does. I've got some good hardwood at the bottom. So I think I'm going to start with this branch. Maybe this guy too. Decisions. I think I'm just going to start right here at the top. Now, one thing I did find with the ficus, and this has been pretty notorious with all my ficus, is they get a lot of scale infestation. And because this one was so overgrown, treating it like I do pretty much every couple of weeks with some neem oil solution I have, I don't think it really got deep enough into the growth of this tree where all the stuff was to really affect them. So I am going to use this branch as a possible graft. I think we'll start on the front side. What the heck? I got some good choices here. I do like this one. This has some branching coming off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up this base of this. I'm going to clean up the base of this one and probably graft it. I'm going to put a slice in here and graft it onto the side. And so I'm just going to be honest with you. This is my first time grafting a ficus. In fact, I tried doing a graft on an elm thread graft and it didn't work. And it was my first time doing it. I wasn't too sure if it was going to work. But as you can see, I've got some good green cambrium. I'm going to basically just graft this into the side of the tree here. Hopefully get that to take. So now that that's prepared, as much as I understand to prepare it, I'm going to make a slit on the side of this tree where I can graft in the new piece, and it's pretty much already shaved like that. So I'm pretty much going to put a slit in probably down here and see if I can't get this to graft on. Actually, I might change the orientation of this so it is a little flatter, giving me even more cambrium to work with. And so what I think I'm going to do is graft it in just like that and then see how it goes. That'll give me a little bit side branch on the side here, and I think that's the idea. So right in that area, I'm going to basically make a slit here in the, you're not going to be able to see too easily, but I want to make this the best. I'm going to cut into this tree with a razor, very sharp razor, and try to peel back the cambrium layer, because that's the nutrient layer that the tree is going to rely on for growth. And I'm going to have to go up over top here, so bear with me, bear with my hand in the way. But trees' health and success of this graft is more important, in my opinion, than being able to get the best view. So I'm basically cutting deep as I can into the hardwood too, and I'm going to try to peel back a layer of cambrium onto this. Now, ask me why I feel confident about the ficus, and it's for a few reasons. Number one, as you can see, what I've done here is I've created a pretty good slit, almost slicing the tree branch in half. But we've got very, very vigorous growth of this. Now what do I do with that layer? So I'm basically just going to fuse this in here and then I'm going to wrap that slice around it. I'm going to expose more of this cambrium on the outer side of the branch, just to give it good contact with the rest of the cambrium layer. I'm just shaving off the cambrium layer here, and just based on how we know trees work, if cambriums, and from what I've done with this tree, as I mentioned, my confidence level is like a 7 or an 8 out of 10 on this, only because of I did the same thing to the base of this and it fused. So I figured we'll do the same thing up here, and that will just wedge in there like that. I'll get it deep as I can into the hardwood section, and then I'll just wrap it. I like to wrap it with simple plumber's tape. It works really well with most of the stuff I do for these kind of things, especially if I break a branch on something. I've always used it. So I'm gonna wrap this guy up here. Plumber's tape works really well because it has some give to it, kind of like electrical tape, but it's not sticking to the branches. You can apply pretty good pressure when you want to pull it tight and it doesn't tear. And I'm just going to cover that whole slice. Another reason why I feel pretty confident about this graft is because ficus heal really quickly. All the cuts, fresh cuts I made, if you've ever cut a ficus, you'll notice that white sappy sticky sap that comes out, and within minutes or maybe a little bit longer it seals itself over. So even my bigger cuts, I don't really use cut paste with these because it does seal so fast, and I just have to believe that that's a great quality with the ficus, their healing property. So I'm just going around this cut area that I just made, and I'll probably guess within 2-3 weeks, as long as I continue to see yellow leaves here at the end, I would guess to say that within a short period of time I'll start getting some new growth on this tip. And there you go. I just grafted a branch onto the side of this. Then I'm going to continue going up, alternating up the sides, and see how that goes with my other branches. Hang tight, I'll give you some more updates. I'm going to work on the front side here. Maybe you'll be able to see it a little bit easier. And this is the branch I think I'm going to use. Again, as long as we get some growth on it, I can always trim it. But it has a lot of ramification to the branch, and it has the kind of the right angle I'm looking for it to come off of this tree. In fact, I'm actually going to cut this down. If I want this going in this way, I'm going to cut this little guy off here at the bottom. You know what I might do? I might try to, actually I'm going to change my mind on that. I'm going to put a nice long cut in it, triangular slit. Let's clear the cambrium off this bark. This is hardwood cutting. It does have hardwood, and it gets a really vigorous cambrium layer. Clean all this off, stimulate these cells to want to adhere to the cells of the branch. Now that I've got that clean, I'm going to stick that back in water while I work on the branch. So I think I'm going to put her in this area here, and all I'm doing is I'm going to trace a line in the bottom deep into the hardwood. I'm going to go up this way, my slit. I'm going to put a cut up here. And all I'm trying to do is kind of peel back a layer of the cambrium, but get down into the hardwood. So I basically slit top, slit bottom, slit the side, and now at an angle, I'm going to slowly work into peeling this layer back of cambrium, but diving deeper and deeper into the hardwood to get, there we go. So as you can see, what I've done is I put a slit. You can see the deep hardwood, the white hardwood, and the cambrium layer on the outside. Let's take that cutting. I'm going to wedge it into that cut. Probably can go a little deeper, I think, with this cut. And again, ficus are extremely quick healers. And so let's go in here. I've got quite a bit, almost all of it on there. That'll be good. She's wedged in. I'm going to wrap my plumber's tape around that. This one's a little bit longer. What I'm going to actually do is trim the tip of this off because it's not too, a little bit too long. It's not sticking in that wedge like I want it to. All right, popping out. There we go. So let's do this. She'll stay there for a second. I'm just going to wrap my plumber's tape around her. Get it started. There we go. Let's just wrap it. I'm giving a little tension as I'm pulling just to suck that flap into the branch that I just grafted on, and make sure she's really tight and pressed in. I found that this plumber's tape helps really seal as well as it can those cut areas too, so they don't get infected. And I think I've got a pretty good covering now. This stuff works really well. I'm going to just tighten it up around the back where I went down with those cuts, trying not to get the other branch wrapped around it. And I think we're good to go almost. I'm just going to go one more time for good measure. All right. It snaps off and it'll just self-adhere itself in. So now we've got a couple branches grafted on from this side, and again I'll probably cut some of this and let a big part of what I'm trying to do is with this tree, and it's so flexible I can wire it, but essentially got one at the back, got one here. I'm probably just gonna, I might try one on this end too. I have a small little piece here, might as well try it, right? The worst that can happen is it doesn't take and I just cut it off, or it just comes off. So I think we graft one more on this tip right there and we'll be good to go. I'm going to finish that up and I'll show you what I got done at the end. Alright, so I just finished the third graft at the tip here, and I've staggered them right and left. Let's clean up a couple of these little straggler pieces of plumber's tape, and it looks pretty good. If this does take, it definitely fills out that branch the way I wanted it to, with the lower one down here in the back, and the staggering stance. And you know, even with the cutting I did up here, it might help some back butting into the deep wood. You can see back in here maybe there's some back butting occurring, so it does happen when you cut back hard on these ficus. But let's take the guaranteed route and do some of these grafts. So that's what I really am going for. I'm going to give you some updates in a few weeks to see how the grafts are going. I'm guessing, you know, we're at the beginning of summer right now, which is this thriving season or time for the tree. So it's got its summer haircut and a very vigorous, healthy tree, and I'm pretty encouraged with what this will do for us with the grafts. Well, that's my ficus trimming and grafting video. If you like that, please subscribe, hit like, and stay tuned for updates on this tree. We'll see you soon.